welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of every recipient of the Medal of Honor. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast, the only podcast that's dedicated to telling the true stories of every Medal of Honor recipient. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrose, and before we get into today's episode, which is number 228 from the Korean War, I want to take a minute to thank those who have been with the podcast from the very beginning and who continue to support the podcast. To those newer listeners that may just be tuning in for the first time, I've seen a recent spike in numbers, and I want to welcome you all. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. You know what to do. I don't have to tell you what to do in 2019. We've been programmed to do it all with social media, so be sure to do all of that, as well as giving a good review and a nice rating as well. Everything you do to support the podcast does help continue the podcast and keeps the names of all of those who went above and beyond the call of duty alive for as long as humanly possible. Thank you very much. And without any further ado, here's today's episode. And now, a tale of honor. James was born on the 1st of December, 1916, in Bloomington, Illinois, and at the age of 26, he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps. He was deployed to the Pacific during World War II and was involved in several campaigns from Guadalcanal, Southern Solomons, Saipan, Tinian, and Okinawa. His first enlistment ended after 4 years in February of 1946. 4 years later, at the beginning of the Korean War, James re-enlisted in the Marine Corps and was assigned to the 13th Infantry Battalion, Marine Corps Reserve, in Los Angeles on the 19th of July, 1950. Within 2 months, he was deployed to Korea and participated in the Second Battle of Seoul after the Incheon landing, for which he earned a Bronze Star with V device. It was his actions during the advance to the Chosin Reservoir that would cost him his life and earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty while serving as a squad leader in a rifle platoon of Company A, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division, reinforced, in action against enemy aggressor forces during the defense of Hill 532, south of Sudong, Korea, on 4 November 1950, when a vastly outnumbering, well-concealed hostile force launched a sudden, vicious counterattack against his platoon's hasty defensive position, Sergeant Poynter displayed superb skill and courage in leading his squad and directing its fire against the onrushing enemy. With his ranks critically depleted by casualties and he himself critically wounded as the onslaught gained momentum and the hostile force surrounded his position, he seized his bayonet and engaged in bitter hand-to-hand combat as the breakthrough continued. Observing 3 machine guns closing in at a distance of 5 yards, he dashed from his position and, grasping hand grenades from fallen Marines as he ran, charged the emplacements in rapid succession, killing the crews of 2 and putting the other out of action before he fell mortally wounded. By his self-sacrificing and valiant conduct, Sergeant Poynter inspired the remaining members of his squad to heroic endeavor in bearing down upon and repelling the disorganized enemy, thereby enabling the platoon to move out of the trap to a more favorable tactical position. His indomitable fighting spirit, fortitude, and great personal valor, maintained in the face of overwhelming odds, sustained and enhanced the finest traditions of the United States Naval Service. He gallantly gave his life for his country." James was 33 when he died and a father of 6. He became the 11th Marine to receive the Medal of Honor for actions in the Korean War, and James Ursley Poynter was buried in the Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery in San Diego, California, with full military honors. Section O, Grave 729, where his second wife, Catherine, would join him in 2005. And that was a tale of honor. Thank you for listening to Tales of Honor Podcast. Thank you again to those who are newly visiting with us and those who have stayed with on throughout the entire process. Please head on over to talesofhonorpodcast.com for more information, other ways to listen and support the podcast, and please be sure to leave a good rating and a nice review. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrose. Thanks for listening.